good evening, so good morning or good afternoon for all the people that are connecting now to this fourth webinar of ISCEAH. Welcome you all. So today we will have this session about in-use earthen architecture with two architects from the US, Ione Stiegler, and TinHinane BACHIR-CHERIF from Algeria. So thank you both for being here today. And we will have also the introduction by our president of the International Scientific Committee of Earthen Architectural Heritage, Maddalena Akenza. Thank you, Madda.
Thank you, Amanda, and hello to everyone, whatever hour you're at the moment. I'm Maddalena Akenza, as Amanda said. I'm president of ISCEAH, and as you most probably all know, ISCEAH is one of ICOMO's 31 scientific committees, and it is the one dedicated to earthen architectural heritage. Our committee is composed of almost 150 members from all over the world, who got organized in 5 themes, in 5 working groups, which are seismic, technology, archaeology, in-use, and landscapes. Each of these groups is coordinated by an expert member. At present, the coordinators of the 5 chairs are Natalia Jorquera for the working group focusing on seismic, Ione Stiegler for in-use heritage, Bakonirina Rakotomamonji for technology, Mazout Nahai for archaeology, and Jorge Tomasi for landscapes. And the seminar that we are attending today is the 4th.
How's that? Is that working now?
Yes.
Great. Welcome and thank you for joining us today. I'm Ione Stiegler, a historic preservation architect working in San Diego, California. Today, we'd like to introduce you to ISCEAH Theme 1, the in-use subcommittee. The concept in-use differentiates the inhabited heritage buildings from the uninhabited, such as earthen archaeological sites, which a different committee covers. In addition, we will not be discussing seismic issues for earthen architecture, as there is a separate committee for seismic. We'd like to present today why we have an in-use committee, how is earthen architecture currently perceived, how protecting existing earthen heritage and learning to repair and restore can aid in the world striving for low carbon solutions for housing and buildings, as well as presenting the information the in-use subcommittee is currently compiling as a source for evidence-based repair methods. And TinHinane will continue with documentation how-tos. Why an in-use subcommittee? Because as shown on this map, earthen architecture is used all over the world. Around 30% of the world's population live in earth-made construction, and approximately 50% of the population in developing countries live in earthen construction, which represents millions of earthen buildings. Earthen architecture is everywhere, and often we don't even know we're walking past it. Here's an example from Valencia, Spain. And we really don't see it until there's a little slice of it taken away and opened up. And there's the earthen building. More common images like this from the High Atlas, an example from Morocco. Rammed earth under construction in China. Even though there's a large percentage of the world population living and working in earthen structures, there's been identified a significant loss of local knowledge and craftsmanship. New generations are losing the knowledge and craft of working with earth to form shelter. There is a false stigma that earthen architecture is not as hygienic and prone to spreading disease and is not as good as other non-earthen forms of architecture, such as construction with steel, concrete, and wood. The stigma has driven a loss in modern demand for this form of construction and thereby driven a loss of local knowledge. The loss of local knowledge equally affects both our heritage earthen structures and the creation of modern earthen structures. While our subcommittee is concerned with heritage earthen structures, it is the loss of the demand for modern structures that is affecting the local craftsmen from having a next generation to pass on their craft and trade to. Drive in the global south to modernize and copy the global north's construction methods of concrete, steel, and wood are easily reconfigured with concrete masonry units called CMUs or cinder blocks. These are easily substituted in the global south because their use is very similar to masonry construction methods for adobe blocks. Although this collective modernizing process being repeated over and over again in numerous villages and towns around the world, we're losing our collective knowledge on how to make adobe blocks and build in earthen construction. Because pre-made, ready-to-assemble concrete masonry units are fulfilling a perceived need. However, CMU has much less mass than a rammed earth or adobe home. You can see for yourself how the hollow cores are, and I don't know if my pointer will show, the hollow cores in the block, make these walls to have far less mass. And therefore, the CMU walls heat up quickly on a hot day and then radiate the heat to the interior of the building. This daytime radiant heat, coupled with a thin metal roof that also collects and transfers heat into the building, creates a building that's incredibly hot and then needs air conditioning to cool off. Here's an example of one in the Eastern Cape in South Africa, where I'm told by researchers there, families will save up for a week and take a little bit of extra money to buy 1 or 2 blocks, a dozen blocks, lay those up, and then wait till the next week to build the next blocks and then the next blocks. But they're getting an inferior product. In Africa, it's a prevalent problem. And these non-load-bearing cement-based materials require additional load-bearing structure made of even more cement and steel. Because of their low thermal mass, hollow blocks or bricks are not suitable in warm African climates, creating living environments that are comfortable only when the use of air conditioning, again powered by non-renewable sources, is used. This all leads to increased carbon usage, when historically there already existed are construction solutions to cooling. In contrast, we need to better educate those living in heritage earthen structures the role that their homes and buildings are playing in saving on the emission of carbon, and emphasize that their homes and buildings should be the role model for new construction. Because in contrast, an earthen structure has such a large mass in 18-inch to 24-inch thick walls that they protect the interior from the heat of the day and do not start radiating heat to the interior till the evening, when it can be appreciated. Coupling the cooling effect of the walls with a wood roof, or even better, an earthen roof, can additionally protect occupants from the heat of the day. We need to teach those living in heritage earthen structures why their home is actually better at maintaining a healthy humidity level that is optimal for humans. Teaching the benefits of earthen heritage architecture is even more difficult when these stigmas are reinforced by governments. like in Rwanda, that first banned the use of earthen bricks in 2006. And then, in an abrupt shift, in 2001, the Rwandan government reversed themselves and now saw earthen construction as a way to provide much needed housing. And they're realizing that they can overcome the failures of the housing type in the past with stricter new adobe brick construction standards. And so they have just enacted those. By altering the perception, the next generation and the next after that will learn the crafts of working in earthen architecture. This creates a double benefit of training craftsmen who can then maintain heritage earthen architecture and training for new low carbon means of housing the burgeoning population. We must move beyond reenactments like this one of earthen building and get to actually implementing repair methods. One way to pass on the knowledge of earthen buildings is by celebrating the event, like the annual rebuilding of the Grand Mosque in Djinn, Mali, or in Taos, New Mexico, where there's another successful example. Annually, the next generation is taught the art of repair on the Taos Pueblo in New Mexico. More images of the annual repair in Taos, and TinHinane will be expanding next on the topic of documentation as a tool of preserving earthen know-how. Others in Lagos, Nigeria, are looking at a way of passing on the knowledge as this Professor Johnson is creating competitions to get students involved. And so that's the background of what we're seeing with in-use earthen architecture. And now for the work of the committee. What we're doing is to aid the new generation of earthen architecture craftsmen. The committee is taking the glossary of earthen materials deterioration patterns created by another subcommittee of ISCEAH, and we're overlaying and providing evidence-based field techniques to repair these forms of deterioration while honoring the heritage of the building. The goal is to compile repair techniques from multiple continents. Repair techniques will also address the primary earthen construction types, including adobe, rammed earth, and hand-formed. This is an image of the table of contents of the glossary, and the repair technique that we will be looking at today is the one pointed to by the arrow, basal erosion and coving. Here is an example of a repair method for basal erosion. So in the glossary, you're going to see this image in with the purple heading. And so our overlay for our section, the work in the section will include the structural repair of the bases of the walls, for which the removal of significant portion of the walls has compromised the structural integrity. And this may include additional foundation stabilization if required. It includes the extensive voids caused by mechanical erosion and effects of rising damp. The intent of the construction is only for the purpose of providing structural integrity to the lower walls. We're not trying to rebuild the entire wall. Portions of missing architectural elements or features shall not be constructed except for that purpose, which is to repair. And this slide has 2 examples of coving. Here are 2 more examples of coving from here in California at Warner's Ranch. And what our guide will do is it'll take you through several phases, starting with preparation. And here, this isn't quite all the way at the base at the cove. This gentleman is actually chasing a rodent hole that has burrowed its way up and in. I'll have some other images of basil in a few more slides. In any case, what you do is the process is the same as for basil. You remove loose mud bricks and friable materials from the area of repair, cut out existing mud bricks to create a solid base for the repair, cut out the bricks in a stepped pattern to integrate new bricks in a toothed pattern, determine the specific extent of the construction prior to beginning the repair and the amount of original materials that will have to be removed. Specifically determine the depth and extent of the repair. The specific details of the construction shall be determined after loose materials have been removed. Place horizontal and vertical string lines in section of new mud brick masonry after removal of any damage. Existing mud bricks to ensure that the repair is consistent with the form and mass of the existing masonry. Mix soil and water prior to use. Mix with clay, should be soaked overnight prior to application. And then if you look deep in the hole where these gentlemen are working, you can see that they are keying in new material to existing by setting new bricks in a toothed pattern keyed into the original mud brick masonry, packing new mud bricks and mortar to the maximum extent possible. They replicate the coursing pattern of the existing exposed surface, including the thickness of the mortar bed joints. Construct the new mud brick masonry in complete horizontal courses where possible. Set new bricks with head joint, mortar as well as bed mortar. New mud brick repair shall not appear as new construction, but shall replicate the general character of the surrounding wall surfaces. And here it is in progress as they're building from the back to the front of the opened hole. Here are some diagrams explaining doing this at the base. First, you clean out the hole, and then as you're cleaning out the degraded adobe, you need to come in and shore with blocks of wood and shims. Here's your blocks of wood and shims to hold up the upper course. And then as you insert a new course of block, you shorten the shim and re-support. And you do this step by step, keying in from the back to the front, as well as keying in side to side. So here you have your keys that should be open side to side. That's an existing brick, with that being the new brick. And you keep layering up, and then you get to the final area, and that's where you have to push in the last of the mortar. Here are some other images. The mortar should be thoroughly wet and in a plastic state, but as dry as possible. The specific moisture content of the mortar will vary depending on the specific use. If basal erosion void is wider than 1/8 of mud bricks, set the interior courses, allow to cure for a minimum of 72 hours before continuing with the exterior wipes. And so here you go with a deep, you would do these inner bricks first, wait 72 hours, and then do the outer course. Protect the repairs from rapid drying by misting, shading, and protecting from dry winds. Usually this is done by putting a damp canvas cloth over, or burlap over the face. And so all of that information is where our committee is trying to boil down to create into single page images that can be easily printed and taken out to the field for work that cover what the deterioration pattern is, basal erosion, what the material is, adobe, what the work is, wall base repair, and a description of what that is, and then looking at the materials that are needed, the preparation, the materials that are needed, the preparation, the repair that we just went through, and then helpful images in guiding that repair. And with that, I want to thank you. And I will stop sharing. I'm not hearing Amanda.
Sorry, I'm sorry. Thank you, Ione. I was, yeah, very, very interesting the work that you're developing. We're waiting to see all the work done already. I will present you as we didn't before, and I will present also TinHinane, so she can present right now. And at the end, we will open the mic for questions and for some discussion together. So Ione Stiegler is the founder and principal architect for ISCEAH Architecture and is experienced in all facets of a historical preservation architectural practice. She was elevated to the AIA College of Fellows for advancing the science of historic preservation and the American Institute of Architects California Council Award. Her firm the 2014 Distinguished Practice Award. Over the last 35 plus years, she has studied, authored reports on, and preserved our rare and fragile historic resources. Thank you, Ione, for that presentation. And now we welcome TinHinane BACHIR-CHERIF. She is an architect with a master's degree in urban design and doctorate in architectural urbanism, urban and landscape heritage from Constantine III University in Algeria. She's a part-time lecturer at the University of Sétif I in Algeria, and associate research at the African Studies Laboratory of Kyoto Seika University in Japan, and a RCU-UNESCO Fellow. Thank you, TinHinane, and she's also our ISCEAH EP representative at ICOMOS International. Thank you, TinHinane.
Thank you very much, Amanda. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
It's not working, so let me share it again. So, can you see it?
Yes, we see it.
Thank you very much, and hello everyone, and thank you for joining our ISCEAH webinars today. I will try to be fast to give more time for questions. I know that you have a lot to ask about conservation methods. So my presentation is a complementary approach to conservation approaches that has been presented by Ione, but focusing more on the documentation as tool for preservation of heritage. This work is an integral part of my PhD research, centered on documenting earthen constructive know-how in the Qusur of Algeria, particularly in the Saura region, which is a desertic area in the southern west of Algeria. It's with the borders of Morocco. And the research, it was focused on a series of 6 Qusur along the Saura River, from which the region took its name. So we have Qsar Taghi, Mughal, Qsar Qnatsa, Qsar Taghi, Qsar Bni Abbas, Qsar Qnatsa, and also Qsar Luata. Let me begin first with outlining the general context and explaining more the meaning of Qsar in North Africa. So in North Africa, Qsar or Qsar, as local pronounce it, it's come from plural Qusur or Gusur, which is generally referred to a fortified oasis villages built of earth and sometimes of earth and stone, often centered around a mosque or jama, which is a fundamental element of the urban planning of Qsar. The entrance are usually connected to the central square where the inhabitants use together and hold their festivities. The Qsar urban structure is defined by a network of alleys that form the transition between public to private spaces. Some passages are covered, creating a cool, shady environment, while others are have a natural light open. Yes, as you see from far or from distance, this heritage look captivant, attractive, and very beautiful. But unfortunately, a closer look reveals different reality, an advanced state of degradation of Qusur. This because of the effect of natural climate change, such as flooding and continuous sandstorms, and also the human factor. But the lack of awareness by the governments and also by the communities of the importance of their heritage contributes more to this unfortunate situation. As a result, Earth has been replaced by and concrete, as we see in the pictures, and we have a very big loss of the earthen knowledge, and also of very big lack of qualified masons, and a breakdown in the transmission of the constructive know-how. So based on this first assessment, my research aims to make the link between earth as material and the Qusur as architecture by identifying and documenting the constructive know-how which led to the creation of this fabulous architecture. So on the one hand, because from these sources it would be possible to identify, recognize, and understand the traditional building skill, and also to constitute a platform for fundamental knowledge to better preserve and enhance this vernacular earthen architecture. And on the other hand, to provide a useful reference or support for the construction of a new earthen architecture better adapted to the context of the region. When I went to the site to start my work on documenting the constructive technique, I realized that even before documenting this, there was no prior documentation on both urban and architectural scale. Not only no support to start with my research, but also, and maybe next year, there will be no traces of this earthen architectural heritage. As we see in this illustration, this Qsar between 2012 and 2021, only quarter of Qsar remains due to the continuous flooding. So the factor of time must also be taken into consideration. And faced with this situation, I had two choices: either to go blind and continue what I was supposed to do for my thesis, or stop and make a stop and try to document this what remained to be documented before it was too late. So I choose the second option because research for me, it's not about about um, about the what's it called, about time or effort, but it's more about the impact, or at least adding something that others can use to start their research. So using graphics and photographic representation, and above all satellite images, as well as a direct field survey, I studied and I analyzed the six qusur and finally produced a modest documentation about the urban fabric, the parcel, the streets, the public spaces, and also about the organization, the social organization and life inside the star, and to finish with a complete documentation for each tour on the urban scale and also the social life. Then I analyzed the main residential and to find the different type of the different typology of the houses. Then I did the same for the mosque. And after that, I returned to documenting the various constructive elements that's still observable in each qasr, of course. So I started to listed them one by one in a table. As we can see here, that's walls, for example, have been classified according to their composition and construction material, mud brick walls or stone walls, or maybe a mixed walls, by also highlighting the dimension of the bricks or the mud bricks using in the construction. The same approach was applied to all the elements, the roof here, the beams and the columns, and also for the opening, the windows and the doors, and to the stairs. So first I classified all of this by type, and then for the arch, and for some decorative elements we identified in the sites. And as our objective was not only to document the constructive elements, but also to understand the process of construction and how the masons used to work to arrive to this final results. And in order to do that and to understand this know-how in its two dimensions, material and immaterial, our first step was to find the masons in each qasr, or people from the local community who could explain and show us traditional building process. But unfortunately, once I started to search for those masons, I didn't find any mason. Maybe I found one, but he was not cooperative. So I opted for another approach to complete my investigation. So as you see here, the map, the Saura region, my case of study area, was located between two main halls in the Caravan Road. And
TinHinane, you've gone mute. TinHinane, you accidentally pressed mute. I can see your mute. Oh, there it is. It's off now.
Can you hear me? And you can hear me now?
Yes, now we can hear you. If you could start again discussing the caravan route.
So I said that this urban route were not only commercial trade routes, but also access for exchange and transmission of know-how and crafts, and for the movement of masons and craftsmen. And sometimes the answer is not here when we wanted to have answer, but there. So we have to go there to other places and just find the answers for our questions. So I traveled to those two regions, bordering the Saura region. The first of it, it's Bouera in Algeria. and the second is Dra'at Filals in Morocco, to look for qualified masons. And for my luck, I found there 2 governmental centers. And now it's the presentation, it's not moving. Yeah. It's changing the presentation for you. You have the slide, the new slide?
Yeah. Yes, it changed.
2 governmental center for the preservation of earthen architecture, Circas in Morocco and Capter in Algeria. So they helped me and they made me in contact with qualified masons. And in this region, I start working with skilled masons on some rehabilitation project. I spent like 3 months working with them in each region. And sometimes I show them the catalog I did in my region and ask them to make workshop or make prototype or simulation to understand more the process of the realization of those elements. But before that, I learned how to choose the right type of earth for construction using some basic tests on the site. Then I proceed to make the mud. Then I proceed to make the mud bricks. So by putting the hand in the dirt, but it means with a joyful and lovely way, because you can never understand this technique in deep if you don't go and you work. You can't just do it by observation. You can write something or document something, but the feeling is by putting your hand there and trying, because we start working from the sunset to the from the sunrise to the sunset, and it was very hard to work. And then the water was very cold because it was in December, and I was I was like, oh my God, how they can do this? How they fail? So I wanted to try it, and I made some bricks, of course. Then I worked with them also to understand the process of making the walls. It was easy to see it from far, but working on that, it's not like making pieces of puzzle, because the hard work is to manage the difficulties and that you find on the site. So you should like find immediately or immediate solution, and this what those masons learn by experience. So they just try to find solutions and by their way. They don't have like rules to follow. After this work on site, it was necessary to reproduce this result using technical drawing in order to formalize the construction process, while explaining the different possibilities of laying earth bricks, for example, that we had identified on the site. We did this for mostly all the elements we had identified in our region. Also for the roof. And for example, roof, when we looked to it, it was like a piece of art. But to arrive to this result, you should like be very focusing. You should choose the right pieces in the right place, because if you don't do this, at the end, you will not have this beautiful art. As I said, all these documents have been redrawn and rendered to technical drawing. And I did the same approach for the stairs, for the beams and the columns, and also for the arch. And other results, I had a full documentation of earthen constructive know-how of Uqsur in my region, which is Saura, with the technical drawing, text explaining the process, and how the masons used to work on the site, and how they used to fill. And now we are working on with other experts to turn this research project into a manual or guideline. And I dedicate this work to Mohsen, one of the masons I worked with in Morocco and who passed away this year. And at the same time, a great knowledge has been lost with him. And finally, I'd like to thank all those masons. They were very, very patient with me. And even they accept the women to work with them in the field. And it's rare, especially with the Moroccan masons. And I'd like to end this presentation with something more optimistic and positive and hopeful with those children. It was their first time to work with earth. They used to live in houses with earth, but they don't like it because they think it's not good, and they want new houses. But when they made themselves this small houses, they were very happy, and they were very helpful, as you see in the pictures. And of course, there's still a long way ahead in promoting earthen architecture, but let's stay positive and especially work towards it. And thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, TinHinane. Very interesting work. It's also very grateful when you can work in your own places, right? To understand it from another point of view. So thank you very much to both of you. Now we will open the floor to anyone who has any questions or to want to make any comments. Even between us, Magdalena, Ione, or TinHinane that wanted to comment something about the other's presentation.
Yes, I would like to say a few words so I break the ice, so to say. There is always a recurrent question about the ENU's heritage, which is the problem of the maintenance. Ione showed us practices and some examples of good practices, and also TinHinane did, but true is that everywhere in the world, more or less, sometimes dramatically, we are lacking professionals in the field. I mean, this is something that I happen to face often. And this is because, in part, Ione said it well, people tend to replace the earth building practices with something else, more following a dream or an idea rather than really being aware of the choices that they're making. But in this way, you both said it, we are losing a lot of competencies, a lot of know-hows, and in some parts of the world, this is already gone. I talk for Italy, for example. We have many, many areas where people don't even know what earthen architecture is. And they ignore that the neighbor is living in a house made of earth, and maybe the neighbor himself doesn't know it. So this is something that we should start really concentrating on, because it's not just a technique that's being forgotten, but it's identities, it's memories, it's even habits of living, because TinHinane will know it much better than me. In the beautiful, very beautiful, I would say magnificent Ksur that she was showing us, people are replacing those beautiful houses with things that I cannot really sometimes describe, but which are copying Western houses, which are normally lived by people that live simply in a different way. So, for example, if the houses in the Ksur, they have an entrance which is hiding somehow and keeping, it's hiding the inside of the house and at the same time keeping its intimity. Now it's like opening the door and being in the middle of everything, which is not really common for the culture. And so it's not just a house that's getting lost, but also somehow also the habits and the way of living and the relations between people and a lot of other immaterial things that we care about. Sorry, it was a bit long.
So, I mean,
yeah, go ahead.
I'll just start and TinHinane, you can follow. We've been seeing this for decades, the ongoing loss of knowledge. And it's just been exponentially increasing. But I really have hope that there's a two-way street and a place for us at the table on climate change. And I'm part of the UN's working group on Climate Heritage Network. And it's looking at heritage architecture and its role in climate change. And I think that we're at an inflection point where the world in many places is looking for low carbon solutions, whether it's straw bale, hempcrete, anything. I'd love to put forward earthen architecture as a solution to a modern problem. And by helping them solve their modern problems, by being able to bring in what we know from the heritage, I feel like we're going to be training a new set of craftsmen in the earthen architecture. So I have a new hope that we're at an inflection point just driven by climate change, that it works in mysterious ways, and one way may be to help save our heritage. TinHinane?
Yeah, I want just to say that, yes, people now, it's like a new fashion, a new mode, or how we call it, fashion or something, to use earthen, not just earthen material, but also to use local material. But the problem, they want to use it quickly without respecting the process, without respecting the techniques, without respecting the adequate techniques for each region. And also they want to do something that don't need in the future to be maintained or don't need maintenance. So when they see earth, they say, no, we want earth, but we want something that we don't have to repair it each year. But this is it. It's life in material. It's material that have life in it. So you can't just treat it like concrete or like other material. It's something that breathes and that feel with you and that live with you. So you should just treat it like this. And our parents and grandparents, they know this. So each year they repair, and they were not scared to live in houses, mud houses, because they know that it's like your baby or your child. You should take care of it. But now they want earth, but they want it with their standards, and it can't work like this. But as you said, Ian, I have hope, and that's why we are here, to bring hope and to work together to do this.
Thank you, Ione, TinHinane, and it's very interesting, but it's also very different in different contexts, right? As you said, maybe in different cultures there's still people that keeps the know-how, but in many other cultures this is already lost, as Magdalena said. And this is also something that we should care for, right? In many places that still keep this knowledge alive, we should like go and look in that place, right? Maybe also to share it with the rest of the world.
Yeah, I just put up, Amanda, I just put up an example. So, I'm not hearing Amanda very well. Is anyone else?
Yes, she had a problem for the moment.
Okay.
Amanda, we don't hear you.
Yes.
Can you see my slide?
Yes.
So just as an example of new modern architecture using earth, here's
go ahead, Ione.
Yes. Here's a Renzo piano designed for an emergency hospital in Uganda with rammed earthen walls. So talk about breaking a stereotype of it being, prone to disease and dirty and all those stigmas that earthen architecture has. This is a hospital built out of earth, brand new. Right? And I think it's going to be knowledge like this, learned for modern buildings that are trying to be low carbon and environmentally friendly and appropriate for the environment they're being created in, that's going to help us get the craftsmen we need for heritage architecture. Thanks for letting me just share that image. I had it as part of my slide. I'm
pretty sure. Thank you, Ione. I only wanted to add that it's also very important that Earth is not only in Africa or in South America, but it's all worldwide. And there's a lot of also in
Amanda, we don't understand a word.
And in Europe and in Australia, and also all of that knowledge that maybe is not in the craft. I have problems with my internet. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so sorry, Amanda, we're having trouble hearing you. But I think your point is that, of course, it's not just Africa. And that was my point in showing the Valencia, Spain, and China, and New Mexico, and California, that it is worldwide. And that's the beauty of our knowledge within our committee, is that it can be used around the world. And I think it sometimes takes people by surprise that they think of it as being a material for dry, arid areas. And I know throughout Mexico, there's some very lush jungle, heavy humidity, lots of rain areas with extensive earthen architecture. So it really isn't driven by climate as well. There was a famous study done a few years ago by a woman in France where she identified 14 different styles of earthen architecture around France, just France. And it was different construction methodologies. It was a fascinating study. In any case, Amanda, you're absolutely right. It's Northern Hemisphere, it's Southern Hemisphere. It's just that I think the emphasis on Africa right now is because it is such a burgeoning population regarding climate change, and an opportunity to really house a huge population with a lower carbon footprint.
Thank you, Ione. I think someone wants to speak. Arar, Sumaya, yes.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you very much for this session. It is more than informative. I have actually two questions, if you allow me.
Yeah, of course.
Sure. Okay, so my first question is for Ione. I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. So, given the imperative for extensive mass housing construction to actually meet growing demands, do you think the integration of earth construction techniques within large-scale housing projects could be actually implemented? And for my second question, because I'm a junior architect here in Algeria, I want to ask TinHinane, in the context of preserving our heritage, how can Algerian architects actively contribute to the safeguarding of cultural heritage on a social and an urban scale? And these are my questions. Thank you.
I'll start, and then TinHinane, you can finish. So in terms of, do I think it's doable on a large scale? I do. It's that you need to have basically Adobe block factories in the locale. The beauty of Adobe's are that it's made by with your local earth, as long as it has a 20% clay, 15 to 20% clay content. You have your materials all there locally, and they don't have to be handmade. I appreciate all the effort that TinHinane did in filling each of those tins with earth and packing it in and moving it on to the next. There are large-scale machines that where you actually batch mix the clay, and it goes in, and it's like a tractor. And there's images online of this, and it's like laying a whole row of Adobe's block right behind it in a flat field. And it's like you're sowing a crop of Adobe block, and it just comes out right behind the tractor as it moves along. And it's mass laid block. We used to have a gentleman who did it here until about 15 years ago in Southern California, Hans Stumpf. And then his family, his kids didn't want to keep going with the business. But that's how he would do large blocks layouts. I actually got his last batch for a project. And then it does require time, about, depending upon your weather, 20 to 30 days of drying, in which every couple of days you rotate the blocks or stack them differently to let the sun and the air get to them. But I mean, just like a concrete masonry block factory, it's a factory to get the mass of blocks needed to do it. But you're doing it, you're employing more labor in the process, which is helpful in many countries, and you're just using the sun. So very, very low carbon. And then when you go to lay the blocks up, of course, it's a mud mortar, not a cementitious mortar. And so again, it's low carbon and it's highly repairable. So I hope that sort of explains a little bit. And those are the blocks that we need for repairing are the untreated blocks, but there's many other forms. I mean, we could go off into a whole nother discussion. There's compressed earth block machines being heavily used in India, where they're compressed to such a strength that it's a brick. And it's, again, done without carbon, without concrete, and then you've got your masonry unit to build with. So if you're building with masonry units anyways, this is just a way to substitute for a low carbon. And then TinHinane.
Thank you very much, Ione. Thank you for your question. So for the case of Algeria, I would start to, we have very talented architects, but the problem, they are not working together. And this is the problem. So sometimes they work in the same site, but everyone is doing his own job and he's not caring about what the others are doing. They don't communicate well. And so maybe it's better if we start working together, especially for earthen heritage, because we have a lot of architects in specialized in earthen heritage, but if you now ask, you will not find anyone in Algeria because all of them left or just they can't work there. So we need to communicate first, and then to preserve this heritage, we need to document it. We have very, very fabulous heritage, but most of it's not documented. And with time, we are losing it. And when architects comes and start working, they just start making the operation, and they are not documenting them. They are not documenting or making assessment. Like I'm talking about a deep assessment, not the assessment the how we say in surface, this one just to write something on paper. So this is it, and for me this is a huge problem in Algeria. I hope I had answered to your question, or Sumaya, is with us? Yeah. Thank you.
Yes, again, thank you very much, TinHinane.
Any other questions for the attendees? I have a question here in private. So we have two architects from working in earthen villages, and they want to ask you, Ione, if you have documentation to share about those conservation methods, because they are like facing this problem, and they don't know how to solve erosion problems, and so they are asking if you have something, manual guides to share with them. You are unmuted.
Hi. So I do have an appendix written by Anthony Crosby for the AIA site in Saudi Arabia, and I think it's very well done, and you might have to accommodate it for your local needs, but it would begin to give you some leads on good techniques, and it's one that we're using heavily. It comes from the appendix section of the World Heritage nomination for that site, and so that's one source. Another source would be, I think this is one of the best books ever written, and I cited it in my thing. I don't know if it's backwards. It's showing backwards to me. Adobe Conservation Preservation Handbook, and you can get it from something called Sunstone Press, and it was written by this group called Cornerstones Community Partnerships, and it's a fabulous book that has lots of diagrams and explanations. It is all in English, to show what you need and how to work. And mine has my pencil scribbles all over it, as I've altered it a little bit here and there. But I think this is one of the best books out there for true hands-on how to do it, but with more information than many give you. But you're right, and what you're looking for is what we're trying to put together through the committee. And it's a little daunting because I find it daunting because from what I know to be good practices here, some of it applies in other parts of the world, and then some of it really doesn't. And I don't want to give false information out there from the committee. And so it really needs to sort of get fine-tuned to make sure that it works in all local areas, or as many local knowledge bases as possible.
Thank you, Ione.
I have to thank Kirk. He's giving a lot of information on the chat. Thank you, Kirk, because it's surely helping everyone. I just wanted to say that now some years ago, I produced a manual for the conservation of the architecture in Figig. This is Aksar on the border to Algeria. And there's I had put there many details and many schemes, and it's in French, but it's not on sale. So the only thing that I can do is, if they write to me, I will send it over to them.
Okay.
I write down my email.
Oh, okay. And you can just send it to me, and I will. I will.
Also, yes. Okay, I'll send it then to TinHinane.
And
you have it already, no?
You have a lot of person who will write to you to get them manual. So.
Okay, I write down.
I'm adding my email into the chat as well for anyone who needs to follow up in contact.
Great, thank you all. I don't know if you can listen to me now correctly. Okay, great. So I wanted to thank everyone also for the questions, for the interest in participating in these seminars. We hope to see you in the next one, that is the 6th of December, also Wednesday at the same time, about Earthen Cultural Landscape with Jorge Tomasi, and who is the chair of landscape at our committee. So thank you all, and see you at the next webinar.
Thank you, Amanda.
Thank you.
And thank you so much.
Bye-bye.